Hi, Rolling Stone. It's Maria from the Marías, and I'm here with
Finneas.
And you're about to watch us interview each other for a while.
For
3 hours.
3 hours. Do you have any funny, memorable experiences from the tour that you just finished?
When I cried. And
yeah, done.
Because 5 minutes later, I was just laughing at myself. But there was a moment on the tour bus that all the guys were watching, like at 2 o'clock in the morning, the guys were watching TV. And then Josh's mom and grandma appeared on the Antique Roadshow, and Josh had no idea. He was just like,
"Oh my God!
How did my mom find her way on this tour?" Like, and yeah. So
what were they selling, or what were they?
He had no idea. Like, he had never seen what they were selling before. It was just something super random. But
I can picture the bus being electric at that. That must have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was just joking. He's like, of course my mom found her way onto the tour bus.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. How has working with Billy affected your solo project and the style of your upcoming album?
I think I've learned a lot from her in terms of the growth she's sort of experienced and the risks she's willing to take as a singer and a songwriter. And I think it's always been very important to me to make sure that the music that I'm making doesn't feel like a imitation of what I make with Billy at all. Obviously, she's a big part of why her music sounds like that, but I also just very consciously like take a left turn to make sure that they're separate because I want them to have their own identity. What's your most common songwriting process?
We go into the studio and usually start by thinking that we can never write another song ever again.
Yeah. Classic.
And thinking that we're just like, what are we even doing?
Yeah.
And then it'll sometimes we'll try to start with like a chord progression or like a melody. Usually it'll be like a chord progression, and then I'll like start singing a melody, and through the melody, like the lyrics will come at the same time. So how do you manage to like translate the energy of a live performance into production and vice versa?
Yeah.
Production into live performance.
It's a great question. I think on this album, one of the ways that I did it was kind of a cheat code, was like the way that it sounds like you made Submarine, was we got in this room that we're in right now with a bunch of players and we made stuff live. And so then I kind of knew it had a good amount of energy right away. But obviously Billy and I have made all of her music alone in a room. And I think we feed off of each other. You know, if we're making an instrumental or we're writing a song and it just inspires us and energizes us, that's exciting. The greatest, to give a specific example, was this very quiet, subdued song, and she wanted to go somewhere for the bridge. And I was like, oh, this would be such an amazing live moment. And I was very much thinking about how the show might feel specifically while we made the bridge. Just in terms of like what it feels like to be an audience member, I think. Do you feel that way?
I love and hate going to shows because I'm so short that it's like hard to see the stage, and then I'm surrounded, so it's kind of hard to listen or hard to hear everything. But if I'm in a good position of the venue, then I'll be able to take the show in, and then I'll leave feeling extremely inspired. And so I try to sort of bottle up that energy and that experience that I had at somebody else's live show and just kind of like what moved me.
That's awesome.
And bring that into the studio. Yeah.
Awesome.
One of the songs, Echo, we couldn't figure out the chorus and the hook for that song for the longest time. And the night before, my friend Sarah and I went to the Taylor Swift concert.
Oh, like the Eras tour?
Yeah, we went to the Eras tour. And I had never been to a Taylor, show, but I was just so in awe of like how her fans were seeing every single song and how anthemic her songs felt, that I was like, I kind of want this sort of anthemic chorus in one of our songs.
Cool.
And so I was reaching from that experience that I had at that show to sort of inspire the chorus of Echo.
That's awesome.
All right, so I prepared some questions in my little book, and I went through them with my therapist yesterday to make sure that they were good to ask.
Were there any that your therapist vetoed?
There were, yes.
Okay.
And so I didn't, I may have included like one of those. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, what's your favorite thing about your least favorite person? You don't have to tell me who the person is.
No, yeah, I mean,
Just like
yeah.
think of them and
Yeah, the person that's coming to mind right now has an incredible hairline.
okay.
Yeah, just
Nice.
inarguably good hairline, and their personality and their actions, which are all terrible, can't take away from how good that hairline is.
Amazing.
Yeah. Can I ask you the same question?
Yes.
What's your favorite thing about your least favorite person?
Yes. This person I'm thinking of, I just appreciate their hustle.
Cool.
and their tenacity. Okay.
Great question. Yeah, hit me with this.
Okay,
These are
okay,
nice
okay,
rapid fire questions.
What was the most recent thing that made you cry?
I was on the phone with Billy 2 days ago. I was supposed to meet with her in person. She just left for this tour, and I was supposed to meet with her in person to figure out a show intro. And I had like a fever or something and couldn't. And she was packing, and this is her first time on tour without me, and we just both got like choked up and blubbery on the phone. It was sweet. Yeah.
Sweet.
And I was like, I've said this a lot to her, but I was like, if you don't like this, I'll come out. Like I'll come right out, and we can do the whole tour together. So yeah, that made me cry. What about you?
Last time I cried out of like frustration, I was on tour and I travel with a full suitcase of like my bedding. So I have
Wow.
sheets,
Pro move.
pillow, eye mask, heating pad. It's like my sleep kit.
Wow.
And so when I get into a hotel room, I
Yeah, strip it, make the bed.
yeah, but it's like I strip everything, put my own thing on there. And I walked into the hotel room, did that, and then I realized the AC didn't work.
So you had to change rooms.
So I had to strip my stuff again, put it in the suitcase, go into the new room, strip that, and then put my new. So I was just like flustered, and that's when I cried on tour. Out of frustration.
That totally checks out. I love that you do that.
Are there any comforts like that you have on tour?
Yeah, I started bringing candles.
Okay.
Yeah, I started bringing like, this is now 2 years ago or something, but yeah, I started bringing like a Feu de Bois by Diptyque. Just I like that smell, and I like the idea of like all of my hotel rooms smelling the same, and the green rooms. For anyone who doesn't know, like green rooms at venues smell like mold. Like they smell terrible. So having it kind of always smell a little nice was just like a little added.
And a consistent
comfort.
smell.
Yeah, consistent smell. This is a question that is a little bit of like a telephone question, but and it has a little bit to do with me. March of 2023, I was at a show where I saw you, and I also saw Josh, and I'd met you like once or maybe that day.
What was the show?
It was Rebecca Black's show.
Okay.
And I was talking to Josh, and I was expressing that at the time I was like feeling very uninspired creatively and kind of stressed out. And he said, so are we. And a year later, you put out an album I love so much. And I just wanted to know what was a turning point that took you from like feeling uninspired to having a full album.
Yeah, I mean, this album, it was like an interesting and weird album to write. And I didn't think that we were like actually going to be able to pull it off or be able to write songs together again and just write in general. And so I think we were both just feeling that weirdness, and that led to the sort of like lack of inspiration, because it was just, we'd get in the room together to write, and there would just be like this air of, it was just awkward. It was just awkward. But Josh kind of went on like an eat, pray, love trip to Europe. He's like, I got to get out of here. I think we wrote this song called Paranoia on the album.
Great song.
Thank you. And he was like, okay, this song, I don't know what to make of it. I need to get out. And the song's not about him, by the way. But he's not a paranoid person. But yeah, he was like, I got to get out of here. He went to Europe. He like visited family. He was gone for like over a month, like no itinerary, just like booked a one-way ticket to like,
oh my gosh,
Amsterdam or something.
Cool.
Yeah. So I just kind of like was on my own journey. We were on our own journeys, and it was the first time that we had been apart for that long. And because even though we had broken up, like we still toured together,
yeah.
like, saw each other every day. So yeah, so he got back, and like I think we both just had like a newfound appreciation for each other,
mm-hmm.
and a newfound like appreciation for the band and like what we were doing. So I think we just kind of hit the ground running and finished the album in like 2 months after.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you had all these experiences to color your work. I mean, that to me is the thing I always think about whenever, like, you and I probably both know dozens and dozens of people that like are, whether they're artists or just songwriter producers, mm-hmm. like they're kind of in the studio all the time. Mm-hmm. And I always sort of, anytime anyone's feeling uninspired, I'm like, well, if this is all you're doing, what are you writing about?
Yeah.
You know, like you have this experience with your mom and this interesting mm-hmm. thing. And even if that has nothing to do with your actual song you're writing, it's still living there. It's still like a thing that you went and lived through. Mm-hmm. And I think that repetition of just sort of waking up and going to a studio and recording mm-hmm. vocals is like, can become very uninspiring.
Definitely.
So, smart.
Yeah.
Smart
what
idea.
about you? How did you get out of your creative?
If my memory is correct, March of last year, we were sort of probably either about to go to South America or we'd just gotten back from South America. And I think a couple things were happening. One was like, we were making Billy's third album. I think we were trying to reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. We'd made 2 albums. We didn't want to make either of those 2 albums again. We wanted to make something great. And, you know, I think that probably rule number 1 is you shouldn't try to make something great mm-hmm. because then you'll get paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And you'll second guess everything. You'll be like, is this great? And mainly you should make stuff and just worry about if you like it at all. Mm-hmm. I think 2 things were happening. She's spoken a fair amount about this, so I feel okay talking about it without her present. But Billy was in a sort of a period of like identity changing. It'd been a couple years since she'd made an album, and I think she was redefining who she was. She was also at the time in a relationship, and I think sometimes when you're in a relationship, it's hard to write about the relationship until you're not in that relationship. Mm-hmm. And so she'd write these things, and I'd sort of be working with her, and I was really pushing her to be kind of like more honest and more transparent. And that just took a long time, as it sometimes can. So I think what the real kind of turning point was as the year went on. I think she was able to get more vulnerable and more honest about how she was really feeling. I think there's like how you hope you're feeling mm-hmm. and how you are feeling. And I think everybody would love to make the album of how they hope they're feeling, whether that's like, I'm feeling sexy or I'm feeling heartbroken or whatever that is. And then there's like how I'm actually feeling. And sometimes that's a weirder, I mean, you're talking about making a weird album. It's like sometimes how you're actually feeling is like, I'm feeling like I'm a bad person or something, you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. so as she got more and more honest, I think the things started to blossom more. Yeah. And then, you know, the cool thing, and I feel like there's so many moments on your album that are like this to me. It's like when you really are that way, you listen to the song that you're able to make and it feels so good. Like mm-hmm. the song, it's like confessional, feels amazing.
Is, yeah.
So I think ultimately she really fell in love with this album that for a while she was like, I'm too scared to write that. And then she was like, I'm so happy to have made this album.
Yeah, I had a similar experience.
Yeah. Do you have a song to point to that is that way?
I think all of them.
Got great answer.
I think the first one that felt like very confessional was Paranoia. Mm-hmm. It just felt like very direct. Like mm-hmm. this was my experience. Yeah. And yeah, I think that was the one that I was like, okay, the lyrics just kind of came out as I wrote the melody. And I remember like looking at the guys and being like, did I just say that? And I think they were like, also like, did you just say that? And I think that just kind of like opened like something within us and within the group that like, okay, I've said that, I can say anything that I want and it's not going to be detrimental to like our relationship. But you mentioned that it's sometimes easier to write like once you're not in that relationship, but a lot of your songs, you're in a relationship and you pull from that. I love For Crying Out Loud. Like
thanks.
it's been on repeat. Like
Thank
that
you.
chorus.
Thanks for listening.
So good. But you know, Claudia's in that video.
Oh yeah.
And so it's, you know, about y'all's relationship.
Yeah.
So how do you, and it's very public, so how do you, you know, maneuver that?
Yeah. I think first of all, I am aware that it's like public. So, you know, probably, and I don't know what your relationship is with writing from like real time experience that you're going through right now versus something that happened years ago. I try to be pretty amorphous with that. If I have some really strong feeling, I'll write about it. But sometimes the thing that's on my mind that day is something that happened to me 2 years ago, or something that like I'm talking a friend through, or something like that. So, you know, For Crying Out Loud, that song specifically, like there are little lines about that, or lines in that song that are kind of about, you know, a relationship, things that like Claudia and I have been together for now 6 years. And I think one of the sort of themes that I found on this album was like writing this kind of album about like communication and like, I think there's like a lot of love songs. There's a lot of accusational, like heartbreak songs. And I think a lot of being in a relationship is like kind of loving each other and having a disagreement and loving each other through that disagreement. And Claudia and I get along really, really well. But yeah, there's just like little lines in that song. There's like there's a line that's like, you know, your heart is a maze, which is like,
I was just thinking, yeah.
You know, that's like a thing that I think.
And you're wearing me out.
And you're wearing me out. And I love you the same. I mean, like to me, it's all just this kind of like, if you really love a person, it's not even on them. It's like you care so much about them that if you're in any form of like disagreement at all, you're like torn up by that.
This was a good one that I went through with my therapist.
Okay.
But she also has.
She said it was okay.
Has something to say. But how has fame affected your sense of self and identity? Because I feel like it was most of your adulthood.
Yeah. Well, I'm so much less famous than my sister. And so I see a very famous person and I live a life as like a super semi-famous person. You know what I mean? So it all feels kind of relative, you know? Once or twice a day, if I'm out in public, somebody will come up to me and want a photo or something like that. And that's fine. And she's the level of fame where like, it's kind of a problem for her to go most places. People kind of swarm her and that's kind of a challenge. How has it affected me? I mean, I feel so grateful. Like I wanted to, I don't know how you feel about this. Like I've wanted to be a musician since I was like 12, like so badly. So the fact that I get to be a musician is so thrilling. And I would have accepted so many less glamorous versions of it. I would have totally accepted like working in a recording studio or something. So I just feel really lucky. And all the kind of, you know, trappings and challenges of fame are like, yeah, there are days where it's frustrating and days where people freak out and are weird on, you know, it sucks, but I will take it because I feel so grateful to have the job.
Is that what keeps you grounded, like your gratefulness?
Yeah, I think the perspective of like, this is a sweet life. Like this is very dope that I get to do this. And I would totally not trade it. Like I love getting to make music. I love getting to perform these shows. I wouldn't want to give away that to give away, you know, being a celebrity or whatever.
Do you think Billy would say the same?
Totally. Yeah, 100%. What about you?
I think, I mean, I'm, you know, we're pretty low key, but I think because most of my adulthood, I just lived a normal life and I grew up in a really small town in Snellville, Georgia. And I just lived a very, yeah, just like a normal small town life, like kind of away from the entertainment industry. So I think like now being in the entertainment industry, I just kind of see it like for what it is. And, you know, every time I go back home, I'm like, oh, like, you know, I'm home. I'm back in the small town, church on every corner. I go back to Puerto Rico and it's, you know, we don't have water for a few days. We don't have, you know, light for a few days, and having to shower with like buckets of water. And like, so it's just going back to like the humbling experiences and humble like beginnings. Just kind of, I'm like, well, this is, you know, I just kind of see the industry and see everything just kind of, I don't know, for what it is. But yeah. Do you have any rituals or habits or practices that get you into the right mindset when you're in the studio or before you're about to perform?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a candle guy when I'm in the studio. I light a candle that I like the scent of. Before a live show, I do it's like a 5-minute vocal warm-up that's like a YouTube video. And it's like a Swedish guy. He's like, we are starting with the ooh. And then I do a vocal warm-up. And that's kind of about it. I don't do like a pre-show huddle or anything.
Okay.
I kind of high-five everybody as we walk out.
You should try it.
A huddle?
Yeah.
All right, I'll try it. I trust you.
Or like something with the whole band to like get you guys, I don't know, just like energetically locked in.
Yeah, we do some high fives, but I'll try maybe we'll do like a nose to nose kind of thing. It'd be great.
Yeah. We do this thing before our shows that I also recommend. We like fist pound, but like looking at each other in the eyes.
Intimate.
Yeah, with the whole team and everyone.
Sounds good.
You should try it.
Check it out.
What does it look like for your future? What are milestones that you want to achieve? Goals? What's in the pipeline?
I'm gonna do a lot of touring on this album cycle, which I'm really looking forward to. I really love performing, and I've never gotten to play anywhere outside the US really as a solo performer. So I'm looking forward to that. There's like venues that I've gotten to play with Billy all over the world that are like really special and beautiful. Like I'm very drawn to like any outdoor sort of, like Red Rocks is such a beautiful venue. Like whether it's with Billy or it's on my own, if I get to play a venue like Red Rocks again, I would love to do that. Yeah, I think sort of generally, like to me, it's all kind of long term. I want to keep doing it, keep working, and stay kind of, inspired for as long as I can. Because to me, the longevity is the important part.
Do you have any plans of performing in Latin America for your solo?
We haven't announced any yet, but we just did the South America Lollapalooza run, and we played Mexico City last March and April. Got to play a stadium in Mexico City. It was with Billy. It was really, actually,
Mexico City are the best.
The best crowd ever. It was actually it was like one of my favorite live memories ever. The night we were supposed to play, there was a huge storm, and there was like water filling up the venue, and they wouldn't let us do our show because it was too dangerous to turn on all the screens. They had the sound system on, but not the screens. And the venue was like half full because people had been turned away because it was flooding. And so we rescheduled the show for the next night, but there were already people in the venue. And so Billy and I went out with just a guitar and a microphone. And we played like an acoustic concert for everybody in the venue. And then they all got to come back again the next night for free and see the show again. But
that's such a good idea.
Doing the first night where everybody was like soaked, it was so fun.
Wow.
But so Mexico kind of has my heart forever for that. What are some upcoming projects or collaborations that you're particularly excited about?
There are a couple in the pipeline that we're working on. A hint, the next couple I think will be in Spanish.
Exciting.
With some, Latin artists that I love. A lot of our collaborations recently have been with some of my favorite Latin artists, Bad Bunny and Tiny and Miko, and I just kind of want to continue down that road.
Love it. Can't wait to hear them.
Yeah. What advice would you give emerging artists trying to break it in the industry?
Make so much stuff. I think there's a real emphasis on marketing yourself like crazy right now. And that does seem to be a big part of it. But I would say that, you can make 1 million TikToks, 1 million videos. And if the song isn't great, you know, and by contrast, if somebody plays me a song I've never heard and I love it, I'm going to listen to it a million times. So it's still got to be about the art that you make, and just make tons and tons of stuff and get opinions on it, share it with your friends, and see what sticks.
What do you think about TikTok?
I mean, I'm on it. I love watching TikTok. You know, my favorite, I'll give it props. My favorite thing about TikTok is watching a song from like 6 years ago suddenly explode. How cool is that? I feel like compared to Spotify, which did a great job of promoting new music, that was something that was really missing from Spotify, was like exploding a song from 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I've loved some old song by an artist that hasn't, like that song, End of Beginning by Joe, it was like 3 years old, suddenly being huge. I love that. It was so exciting.
And I feel like that also takes the pressure off because it's like any song.
At any time.
At any time. So it's,
yeah,
you don't have to, I feel like you don't have to write for it.
Oh, it's been out for 2 weeks and it didn't do very well. Oh, well, like it's like.
Yeah, exactly.
Could happen 2 years from now. Totally true.
Well, this has been amazing. I didn't know a lot of personal things about you, and I'm so glad that I was able to ask you some therapist-approved questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. This was a real treat to sit down with you, and I'm just such an admirer of your music, so thanks for what you do.
Same. Thank you.